I forgot about the strategy. I forgot to let the collaborator know about this. But the other two have actually gone viral, like millions of views, which is way more than both of us get.
This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business.
Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike along with Luke Acree. And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you're not already. And while you're there, drop us a review. We'll read it here on the show. I also want to point out we've had like 3 people in the past, week, Ariel?
Yeah, we've had several people let us know that they've left reviews.
Yeah, and they're not showing up.
So
guys, I have to break it to you. That was probably their soft way of telling you they didn't review your show.
Now, wait a minute. One of them was our content writer, Gabrielle.
Yes.
So I think we can trust her.
We can trust Gabrielle.
So if your reviews aren't getting through on Apple Podcast, email us at podcast@reminderme.com. We will read them here on the show. Our guest today, we are super excited to have him on. His name is Brock Johnson. He's a 25-year-old, 7-figure entrepreneur with a passion for helping others grow their following and business on Instagram. As co-host of a top 10 business podcast, instructor of multiple online courses, and viral social media creator, Brock has helped thousands of entrepreneurs learn to build their business on social media, even with limited time and money. Brock, welcome to Stay Paid.
Josh, Luke, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Brock, man, we're excited to have you. And you're going to help us with I say sometimes the pain of our existence, which is trying to figure out this social media game.
Engagement.
And I'm sure a lot of our audience feels the same. It's like, you got to be there. You got to do it consistently. But it's just like, oh my gosh, how do I actually make it worth my while? Before we dive into the actual tactical tips and strategies, could you share with the audience kind of your story, a little bit of how you got started as an entrepreneur and lead us up to today?
Totally. Yeah. I'll give you the 3,000-foot point of view of kind of my story. So I got started my freshman year of college, oddly enough, helping parents keep their kids safe on Snapchat. So I was kind of like the snitch, teaching people how to use Snapchat and keep their teenagers safe. And this was in 2015, 2016, when Snapchat was kind of as popular as people think like TikTok is today. Like it was all over the news. It was a big deal. And that was how my business started. But over the next 4 or 5 years, it continued to grow and evolved. I continued to grow my business. And so I started teaching people how they could do the same with their business on Snapchat. And then there was a mass exodus from Snapchat when Instagram stories came out and a bunch of people were leaving Snap and transitioning back to IG. And so I went with them. I followed that trend and followed that train back to Instagram and started growing my own Instagram. At that time, I was around 20,000 followers. And over the next 2 to 3 years, I grew to somewhere around 60 or 70,000 followers. Fast forward now, we are in spring of 2021. So about a year and a half ago. And it was actually April 1st. And I challenged myself, just a personal challenge, to post a reel a day for 30 days. Because I was always preaching consistency and reels had been around now for about 8 months or so. And I was like, listen, they're hot, they're popular, they're what everyone wants. And so what if I just challenge myself to push a little bit outside of my comfort zone and do one a day for 30 days? At the end of that 30 days, I had gone from 65,000 followers to 100,000 followers. So over 1,000 followers a day in those 30 days. And then I was like, well, shoot, I might as well keep going. And I might as well invite other people to do this with me. And so now we're at like 512 days, something like that. I don't know the exact number, but we're over 500 days now. I've missed one day. And it was because I was camping in the woods and I didn't have any cell service or Wi-Fi. So I had no way to post that day and I didn't plan ahead of time. So that was my fault. But besides that, I posted at least one reel a day for the last year and a half or so. And since April 1st, since that day, I've been growing at a rate of over 1,000 followers a day to now I'm at 540 something thousand followers and continuing to add 1,000 new every single day.
That is incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
I got to ask, 500 days, one reel a day. How in the world do you come up with the ideas? How do you consistently pump out the content? Are you sort of time blocking and scheduling days within your week to produce the content? Where are you getting your ideas from?
Yeah, so I'm definitely time blocking. And I'm glad you said that because that's what I prefer to do. And I really break my time blocking down even into further chunks because a lot of people talk about batch producing, right? But I think that where people get stuck is they try to, let's focus on reels for a second. They try to make their reel from start to finish in one sitting. And let's think about it. Like those are different headspaces. Like the headspace you have to be creative and coming up with the idea is probably different than that really creative feeling where you're like ready to be on camera and ready to speak and ready to actually record. And that's a very different mindset to be in than like your editing phase, right? And also let's talk about like time of day. If I'm recording a reel, I probably want to do it in the middle of the day where there's a lot of natural lighting and it's going to be a bright video. But editing my video, I can do that at 3 a.m. when I'm watching Netflix. Like I don't have to do that in the middle of the day. I don't want to waste that precious sunlight or daytime hours. So I break my time chunking into these really small, tiny little segments. But then the other thing I want to say is I don't come up with a lot of new ideas. In fact, I say this and this blows people away. 2/3 of my content is not new. It's something that I've already posted in the past that I'm literally just posting again. And I recommend this for people. If people want a really tangible tip to walk away from, I think we're 5 minutes in right now. This is a great one to have. Scroll back to your best post from 2 to 3 months ago and just post it again.
Like literally repost the same thing. Don't refilm it. Don't redo it. Just repost it.
Don't refilm it. Don't redo it. Don't waste any time. Literally, if it's already on your camera roll, post it again. And if it's not on your camera roll, use one of those websites or apps that allows you to download it from your Instagram or from your TikTok, from your YouTube, whatever, download it, and then just share it again. You don't need to go delete the original because no one's going to scroll back and find it. No one even probably remembers that you posted in the past. And if they do, congratulations. That's great for them. They found it educational or valuable then, and they're going to find it valuable again now. So don't waste your time always coming up with new content. Just keep going back to what works.
Now that's awesome. I find like Gary Vee was saying, I was watching him on I don't know if it was like a short little clip or whatever, but he says, once you get like a viral video or some type of content that goes well for you, he says, squeeze. Well, he says squeeze the crap, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, but squeeze every juice you can out of it and make every different angle on that piece of content. Is that something that you see as well, or would you not recommend that?
Yeah, absolutely. So not only am I reposting content, I'm the other 2/3. So I said 2/3 of my content is not new, right? So 1/3 of it is a direct repost. Literally, I posted it before, I'm posting it again.
Same caption and everything, just to make sure I'm understanding.
Same caption and everything.
Wow.
Same caption. If the caption fits, sometimes there's something that needs to be tweaked or made more relevant. But if it fits, roll with it. And then the other half of that 1/3 is things that I'm recreating that I've made in the past. So maybe I made it a few months ago and I had a different haircut at the time, or I was living in Seattle, Washington. And so it'd be very obvious for people that my background is where I used to live. Or maybe there's like a slight adjustment I want to make to the content. So I'm just recreating that content and I'll do that over and over and over again. And so that way, really 2/3 of my work has already been done for me in the past. And so I'm able to have this really high amount of output without having an extremely high amount of input.
Well, where are your followers coming from? Are you finding them from like the Explore page because you're doing so many reels on Instagram? Are they coming from other people sharing your content? Like, can you tell where the majority of that growth is coming from?
Yeah, so those are the top two. You hit the nail on the head. Half of it is
cool.
the organic reach from Reels. Reels have such a high reach to people who are not following you already. And so that's a huge part of it. And I should say, like I said earlier, I post at least one reel a day, but in reality, I've been averaging 2 or even more than 2 reels a day.
Really?
And so it's really just a numbers game. Every time you post, it's an opportunity to not just serve your existing followers and connect with them, but it's also an opportunity to reach new followers. So if you make one post in a day and you reach 10 new people, but I made 3 posts in a day and I reached 10 new people with each of those posts, I reached 3 times the number of people that day. That's 3 times the number of potential followers, potential customers, potential clients. So it really is a numbers game. And then also, I'm glad that you brought up shares because a lot of people, there was this article written like 5 or 6 years ago that said that saves are a super light and that saves are the best form of engagement on Instagram, hitting that little bookmark button and getting it saved. And that's definitely a great indication of how valuable your posts are. And getting your posts saved is definitely important and it definitely matters. But if you want to, quote unquote, defeat the algorithm or forget all about the algorithm, you want to just grow regardless of the Instagram algorithm, it's getting your content shared because that's the direct recommendation. And, like Josh, if you see one of my posts and you send it to Luke, there's no algorithm involved. Luke is now going to see that post. That's guaranteed that my views have just doubled from 1 to 2 because you shared it. So if you can encourage your audience to share and create share-worthy content, you're going to grow and reach new people regardless of whatever Instagram does with their algorithm.
We'll talk about that for a little bit, this idea of a call to action in a video, because this is something that we got from you that we're trying to do a lot more of. I don't think we're doing it as well as we could yet, but we're trying to do that a lot more in terms of everything you put out there. You should be telling what the audience or what you want the audience to do with it. And you just did a test, if I'm not mistaken, on shares versus saves. Was it a reel or was it I guess it was a reel, right? 2 different reels, same exact content, 1 share, 1 save. And talk about the results there because it was super interesting. And then kind of explain this idea of the call to action on each video.
So it was literally yesterday. I took the exact same video and all I did was leave a blank space at the end where I said, do this. And then I pointed at the text on the screen. And for one of them, it said, like this reel. And the other one, it said, save this reel. So just a very simple, direct, easy action for people to take. I posted them at the exact same time and I did nothing different to impact the posts after that. I didn't engage with them or look at them anymore or share them to my story or anything like that. And it was really interesting to see the results. The one that the call to action was to save, got way more overall engagement. It also got way more overall views. Interestingly enough, though, the one where I told people to like got more likes. So I think that one, the one I told people to like, got about 7,000 likes. Whereas the one where I told people to save got about 5,000 saves. So slightly less people engaged. And when we're looking at percentages of people who saw the post, significantly less people engaged in the way that I told them to. But the overall views higher and the overall engagement was also higher. I think part of that was the experiment was kind of tainted by quite a few people shared the one where I said,
I was going to say, I think like 3 times the people shared it. The
3
one that
times,
said
which was kind of crazy. And I think there's a lot of explanations for that. One is people were like, hey, this is a cool experiment. I'm going to share it. They were tagging their friends in it. Some people probably read the word save and their brain read share. So they just shared it. But it got 3 times the number of shares. And I think that definitely skewed the data, of course, because like we were saying, a share equals more views. But all of that was a great example of what you brought up, which is the value and the power of a call to action, right? We're scrolling through social media on autopilot. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, no matter what it is, we're scrolling through on autopilot. And it's become very normal as you're watching a YouTube video to hear the YouTuber say, don't forget to ring that bell. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Right at the beginning of this podcast today, we're talking about like, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to, leave a review for the show, right? These are things that are natural in those kinds of longer content. But on Instagram, for whatever reason, and on TikTok, for whatever reason, we don't have this, this natural inclination to ask for people to engage. And so very simply, ask your audience for the kind of engagement that you want from them. If you want them to save or share or like, ask them to do so straight up in the video. Don't bury it down in your caption. Be bold, be upfront, and ask for people to do what you want.
Interesting. Would you say at the start of your video before the content or after you've delivered the content?
I think sometimes it can be kind of weird to put it at the beginning because usually your call to action is going to be tied to the content.
Right.
And so I like to put it at the end. You definitely can put it at the beginning. But let's think about something that's like, a really educational tip. Let's say you're sharing something that's really valuable, a learning lesson. People are most likely going to save that, right? Because they want to revisit it later. They're going to save it. But if you tell them to save it at the very beginning, they might not do it. Now, you could intro it. You could be like, hey, here's 3 tips to become a better rock climber. And before I even get into the tips, make sure you save. But then they're saving because they already know what they're about to get. But I wouldn't put it before the hook. I think you should always start with the hook. Then you can put the call to action second. Because then people know what they're already going to get. But I like to usually just put my call to action at the end of the video.
Okay. Can I go ahead if you're tagging onto this? I have some rapid fire questions.
Yeah, I was going to tag onto that real quick. So I want to jump back to the idea of getting it discovered on the Explore page, right? What would you say is the most effective or the biggest factor in getting on that page? Is it the engagement that you're already naturally getting because you've got a following, or how does someone with a smaller following start to get that type of exposure?
Yeah, great question. So there's no one silver bullet. It used to be a lot simpler. It used to be like, oh, if you got a ton of saves, then you would get on the Explore page. It's not that simple anymore. There's no straightforward algorithm because Instagram doesn't want us to game and cheat the system. But the nice thing is it's not based off of total amount of engagement. Getting on the Explore page is based off of engagement rate or engagement percentage.
Okay.
So if I have 100,000 followers and I get 100 likes on one of my posts, it definitely ain't getting on the Explore page. But if someone just started a brand new account and they have 10 followers and they get 100 likes on one of their posts and 100 saves and shares and all those other metrics as well, well, then Instagram's going to deem this as a very good post and one that they should share on the Explore page. But a really key component for landing on the Explore page is sticking to one niche consistently.
Okay.
Because the Explore page recommends content that they think we are most likely to engage with. So you can do a test with this yourself. If you intentionally, and we've done this many times, engage with one kind of content. Like you're only engaging with videos of turtles for like a week. You're just engaging. You're looking up turtle hashtags. You're like,
dude, you looked at my Instagram.
Sea turtles. Like, you're getting into the turtles. You're all about the shells, and you're getting into it. Well, then a few days later, Instagram is going to start showing you turtle content on your Explore page. Here's the key differential, though: the content they're showing you is from accounts who consistently post about turtles.
Okay.
They're not going to show you a great picture of a turtle that someone took on vacation that one time. When all the rest of their posts are about their family and their friends and everything else. And they took a great picture of a turtle one time. That's not going to get on the Explore page. The algorithm wants to recommend not just content, but entire accounts that are related to the niches that we're interested in.
Is that driven by
the reason that niche is so important?
Is that driven by hashtags and keywords in your post mainly?
Hashtags play a role. Keywords play a role. All of these things play a role in Instagram's artificial intelligence identifying what your content is. But also the artificial intelligence is really flipping smart. It's way smarter than it was 5-10 years ago. So that's why 5-10 years ago, hashtags were so essential.
Yeah.
Like there were memes, right? Like I think about like the Jimmy Fallon, Justin Timberlake hashtag thing. Like there were entire comedy skits about hashtags because they used to be really, really central for growth and exposure. Where now the artificial intelligence is smart enough for the most part to figure out what our content is about and what our posts are focused on. So you can add some hashtags, you can add some SEO to kind of beef it up. It's not going to hurt you at all. But really just focusing every single one of your posts on the same topic is going to allow that artificial learning to do its job.
Yeah, I've never thought about it that exact way.
I saw somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, but the Instagram actually has AI that will look at the photo and it will write a text description of what is in the photo.
Yep, that's actually been around for about 3 or 4 years now.
Okay.
That was originally created for photos and text posts, and it's called alt text. And it was actually created as an accessibility tool. So for people who were visually impaired or blind, they could still use Instagram, and it would just like audibly read them what was in the post.
That's
so they
awesome.
had to create that feature as a way to like just verbally describe what people would otherwise be looking at. But that is also used by Instagram's artificial intelligence to figure out what the heck is in your post and what it's the photo of.
Yeah, so if you want to niche down in turtles, just make sure it's a clear photo of a turtle.
Clear photo
You
of a
can clearly
turtle.
see the outline.
But it makes sense because I think about our content and we're marketing content geared mainly towards real estate, insurance, or I think about motivation and we're doing the motivation, but we're kind of a little bit all over the
We're
board.
all over the place, man.
And so that's probably hurting us a little bit from that perspective. Here's some rapid fire type questions for you, just like getting your opinion. So do you advise long captions or short captions?
I advise short captions. Like if I can give a simple answer, it's short captions. But the more exact answer is your caption should be as long as people are going to read. Right.
Okay.
And usually people don't want to read very much, right? They're scrolling through videos. They're watching quick things on Reels specifically. If you're looking at like the Reels page, it's really hard to see the caption. So generally speaking, a shorter caption is going to get people to read it. If you can get people to read a long caption and you like writing long captions, knock your socks off. Go for it. That's awesome.
But you don't
people
find
on
it
your
super
post.
influences reach or algorithm, like from what your experience has been?
Again, it will if you get people to read it. So if you make like a super quick, let's say 4-second reel, and you're like, hey, read the caption for more details.
Yes.
And there's 4 paragraphs in your caption. And people, your viewers, are actually taking the time to read it. Well, guess what? It's happening during the time they're reading it. They're spending more time on your post and your videos looping over and over again. That's flipping awesome.
Yeah.
But the problem most people make is they write like a 19-paragraph MLA format essay in their caption every single time. And it bores people to death. So people see that long-ass caption and they immediately scroll. And that's doing the opposite of what you want, because that's telling Instagram, people don't want to read this crap. They're just scrolling on by and forgetting all about it.
That makes so much sense. And now, Layla Hormozi, I don't know if you follow Layla and Alex Hormozi, right? But I'm all into their stuff now. She's doing this really cool hack, which is exactly what you just said, which she's giving you a statement and then going, read the caption for my answer. And so she's directing people to the caption for her 4 bullet point answer. And I'm like, oh yeah, I find myself reading on her from the actual picture though, with that little statement. All right, here's my next rapid question for you is how many times a day should you post an answer for both stories and your feed? Just your personal opinion.
Yeah. So for the feed, as much as you can sustain.
Okay.
The more you post, the more you grow. It has been mathematically proven on Instagram that the more times you post per day, the greater your growth rate is on average. And the graph continues to go up and to the right. It's a straight line. The more you post, the more you grow. But I like to caveat that or put the asterisk that it's what you can sustain, right? Because consistency trumps frequency. So if you are posting 8 times on one day and 8 times on the next day, and then you're overwhelmed and you're burnt out and you don't post for a month, that's not going to lead to growth. I'd much rather have you post 5 days a week than 5 times on one day and then miss the rest of the week, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
What you can sustain is really key, because also if you get burnt out and you stop posting, you're definitely not going to grow. So that's feed posts. And feed posts are what lead to growth. Stories do not lead to growth. In 99% of the cases, stories do not lead to growth. There's a few rare exceptions and a few accounts that do grow because of stories. But generally speaking, that's not what stories are for. Stories are for documentation rather than creation. I think Gary Vee was the first person to say that. Documentation rather than creation. And so they're supposed to be in the moment. They're supposed to be real. They're supposed to be authentic. And they're really, truly supposed to allow people to get a window into your life so they can build a relationship with you and really get to trust you and believe in you. And studies have shown that the number one thing besides price that people care about when they're purchasing is trust. Right? Like price is always going to be the number one thing people care about when they make a purchase. But number 2 is trust. And so how do you build that trust on Instagram that leads to a sale? It's through your Instagram stories. It's showing them all these different aspects of your personality and what makes you unique and all these different interests and the turtles that you love and all of that. That shows up on your Instagram stories. And if you want me to put a number on it, I can tell you that 11 is the number of stories per day that puts you in like the top 10%, I believe it is, of Instagram profile. So if you're posting 11 or more, you're in that upper echelon, that top percentage. But don't force it. I think with Instagram stories, it should be natural. It should be organic. And it should be very documentary.
You know what accounts I see grow through stories are the ones that just post TikTok videos.
Really?
It's basically just TikTok with Instagram.
Essentially, it feels like they've turned their Instagram stories into the TikTok feed.
Just the best of TikTok.
Interesting.
Is way more engaging than the Instagram feed. That's a fact. So I think when people do that, they're kind of cheating the system and turning their Instagram stories into a TikTok feed.
Yep. So here is a question that's more specific to us, but I think has application to the audience as well. Instagram released the collaboration feature. So I have my own Instagram with, my brand, and we have Stay Paid Podcast. So almost every post we're collaborating. Wise decision, bad decision. What's your gut tell you on collaborations?
I don't know if I would recommend doing it for every post. I would do it often, but I wouldn't do it for every post. And what we found is that when collaborations first launched, it had an additive effect. So if I got 10, let's make simple numbers. I got 10 views on average. My friend got 8 views on average. It would be 18 views now on our reel. But what's been going on more recently, what we found is that it more so averages out the number of views. And so myself personally, when I'm collaborating with other people, it's usually reducing my reach or reducing my views that I'm getting on the video because I'm collaborating with people who maybe have slightly less followers or views on average than me. So I wouldn't recommend doing it for every post because essentially then what you're doing is averaging out your 2 accounts for every single piece of content. But one kind of insider tip, and I don't think I've shared this anywhere else yet, is to, first of all, have whichever person gets more views on average, have that person share the post first and invite the collaborator, but make sure the person who's invited, they don't accept it right away. Mm-hmm. Let the post almost run its course. Let it be up for 5, 6, 7 hours. Let it be up until the point in time that you start to see it really slow down to the point where the engagement is just kind of trickling in, and then have the other person accept the collaboration, because that's essentially giving it a second life. It's pushing it back into people's feeds. It's pushing it back into their the algorithm and giving them another opportunity to engage. And from that, we've actually seen, I think of my 3 most recent collaborations, 2 of the 3 have gone viral. And the one that didn't go viral was the one where we accepted the collab at the exact same time. And I forgot about the strategy. I forgot to let the collaborator know about this. But the other 2 have actually gone viral, like millions of views, which is way more than both of us get.
Nice. Okay, 2 more questions. One is the pin feature on Instagram. Any advice on, should I change that all the time? Should I, have you seen anything significant there? I've heard that it gives a second life to a post, right? Like when you pin something, it automatically puts it back into rotation, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily put it back into rotation, but it does put it as one of the top 3 posts on your feed, which can give it a breath of fresh air. Like if people are coming to your profile, and they're tapping on one of those posts, thinking a lot of times that it's one of your recent posts, or even if they don't think it's a recent post, it's just right there in their face, right? It's at the very top. So it's kind of giving more views to that post. I think that there's 3 kinds of posts that you can/should use as a pinned post. One is your best post, like whatever the most viral is, as long as it relates to your niche, of course. Like if it got millions of views, or if it just got more views than you normally get, that's a good one to make as a pinned post, because it puts a good first impression out there. Mm-hmm. Another good pinned post is like an introductory post. I feel like everyone at some point does some sort of, this is me, this is what I'm about, this is what we do, this is who we help and who we serve. So I think having like an about me.
That's a great idea.
Here, some people. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that's a great idea. Yeah, I don't have that. That's a great idea.
A lot of people have created ones that are they say start here, and that's a good one to make as your first pin post, because it really stands out and people tap on that. People used to make highlights that says start here, but people don't watch that many highlights. They mainly look at feed posts, so that's a great way. And then the third kind of tip that I would give for your pinned posts is, I would recommend regularly, let's say every 2 to 3 weeks, updating them. Because if someone comes to your profile and they're not as tech savvy or as Instagram aware as the 3 of us are, they come to your profile and they see that your first post on your profile is from April and they don't realize it's a pinned post. They're like, oh man, he hasn't been active since April. He hasn't made a post in 5 months. I'm not going to follow him. This probably isn't even an active profile. They don't realize it's a pinned post, and that will change likely within the next few months as people start to recognize what the heck a pinned post is. That won't be a concern anymore. But right now, at least, that's a very valid thing to worry about for when new people come to your profile.
Love that. All right. So last of they were kind of rapid fire, but I selfishly, I wanted to know all the answers to these. My biggest pain point, and I think for a lot of people is in content creation, is the hook. And when I mean the hook, I mean like that first 2 seconds of the video. And I'd love to just get your quick opinion on do you focus on beautiful imagery and quality? Do you focus on text? Do you focus, how do you think about the hook and drawing people in?
Mm-hmm. So if it's a trending audio, if I'm recreating something that someone else has made, I don't worry about the hook, because I'm just doing whatever that audio is. I don't try to, finagle a hook into that type of video. But if it's my own original content, I have a few different ways of starting the video. I think the simplest and easiest way is just telling them what you're going to tell them. And I learned this one from Sean Cannell on YouTube, where it's essentially start the video by telling them what the video is going to be about. It sounds really simple, but it grabs people's attention. Another thing that I like to think about with the hook, and I try to balance this out so I'm not doing it too often, but focusing on, and this sounds bad, but this comes from media and TV and newspaper, focusing on the negative thing. So stop doing this, avoid this, don't do this, stay away from this, no more this, because for whatever reason, people are more drawn to those headlines. But I definitely try to balance that out because I don't want my entire page to just be what not to do on Instagram, even if it starts with, hey, don't do this. And then I tell them what to do. I don't want to always be leading with the negative, but sometimes those things, the avoid labels, the warning labels, those can really grab people's attention. And then I do try to specifically use color psychology in my hooks. And so the color psychology is basically certain colors grab our attention. When you're at the grocery store later, take a look at all the magazines that are right there. The ones that your eyes go to right away are the ones with yellow words. The ones that are getting purchased the most are the ones with yellow and red font on the cover. Like if you look at them, you'll actually see that a lot of them use yellow font because it grabs our attention. This doesn't mean that every single one of your hooks needs to be yellow or red, but certain colors grab our attention more. While if I was to use like a soft brown or even just like a plain black or white text color for those first couple words of my video, it is going to, statistically speaking, get less views and get less people to start watching the video just because when we see a certain color, our brains are like, oh, I need to pay attention. I need to listen up to this, even if the video isn't something that necessarily would interest us otherwise.
Yeah, that's gold, man.
Do you find people eventually get, I guess they want it because they're seeing, because you're saying so much of your content's being discovered versus scrolling through your feed. So it's going to stop them in the feed no matter what. That color theory, yeah.
And also they're seeing so many other posts, right?
Yeah.
That like, unless 100% of people were all using red, they're getting variety. And so that little differentiation from account to account and post to post is enough to keep it fresh.
Yeah, social media can't undo thousands and millions of years of evolution, I guess.
Exactly.
Brock, I'd love to hear kind of your take in terms of like, what's next? Whether that's in Instagram, what's like the next thing? What are you sort of predicting you seeing the platforms go or social media in general? I know you're big on TikTok as well. What are you sort of seeing right now that people should be taking more advantage of, or where do you see it going?
Yeah, so this is huge. I think one of the biggest things is something that we've already been seeing. We've been talking about it for months. Literally this morning, Instagram CEO said it. He said it before. He said it again, which is that their focus at Instagram is on original content, things that people are creating that are more unique and more true to every individual creator or business owner. That's also true on TikTok. That's not to say that you should not do trends or that you should avoid, recreating things that other people have made or putting your own spin on whatever's popular. But really what's going to win in the long term is original content, and even original content that starts to become a little bit longer, right? We see that on TikTok, videos could be 3 minutes. And then now I think they're even testing 5 or 10-minute videos, which is crazy on TikTok. I mean, sometimes I'll catch myself, I'm like 7 minutes into a video.
TikTok's becoming YouTube, and YouTube's trying to be TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. All of these platforms are fighting for our attention, and they're copying each other. But it's really that original content, which is key. I think one really important factor that I think a lot of people are failing to recognize, because I think a lot of people are very anti-Instagram right now. They're very, TikTok's the platform of the future. There's going to be YouTube and TikTok that will prevail, and Instagram's going to die in the same way that Facebook has really been struggling over the last few years, at least in terms of growth. And the one key thing that Instagram does better than every other platform is direct messages. TikTok is currently pouring a lot of resources into the DMs. And the reason that matters is that sales come from the DMs, right? Earlier, we talked about trust. We talked about how trust is so important for a potential customer. Trust is built best in the DMs. Like if you're able to have a conversation with someone the way we are right now, whether it's face-to-face over Zoom or whether it's through a text conversation in the DMs, that's really freaking powerful. That really builds people's trust, and that leads to sales. And this isn't just me speaking based off what we've seen. There's a study that just came out from Carrot Financial that said that the average value of an Instagram follower is 77 cents. 77 cents. Hold that number in your mind. The average value of a YouTube subscriber is 10 cents.
Wow.
The average value of a TikTok follower is 7 cents. So the average value of an Instagram follower is 11 times higher than the average value of a TikTok follower. And that number was calculated by looking at people's actual revenue that their business has generated and comparing that to the number of followers that they have. And so that tells me that Instagram is the best platform right now, at least in terms of sales and customer acquisition. arguably on all of social media.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that is
a couple
crazy.
other questions for you, a couple last questions for you that aren't social media related, but would love to just kind of pick your brain because we always like asking successful people kind of how they sort of view the world and everything. But in terms of like, do you have any favorite quotes or sayings that you kind of continue to come back to in your life or your business, and why?
Totally. Yeah. So I have this one. I had to pull it up because it's a few sentences long. And it's from a book that I haven't read, but I know the quote. So it's a good quote. And I really struggled with perfectionist for many, many years. I was a college football player. I was a quarterback, and I come from a long family of professional quarterbacks, professional football players. Struggled with a lot of pressure and perfectionism growing up. But so this quote relates, and I think it'd be really helpful for a lot of people on social media where they feel like they have to be perfect, or even just in business and in life, where they feel like they have to meet this impossible goal. So the quote is from Anne Lamott, and the quote says, "I think perfectionism is based on the obsessive belief that if you run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. But the truth is, you'll die anyways. And a lot of people who aren't looking at their feet are going to do a whole lot better than you and have a whole lot more fun while doing it." And so that quote has really, really impacted me in my life. I also got to say, going to therapy and finding a great therapist has really impacted me in my life. So I am no way a completely non-perfectionistic person. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I was just going to say, as a recovering perfectionist myself, I got chills with that quote.
You're never going to reach the finish line, right? But it's a process that we're continuing to work on in ourselves. And so that quote, that really is something I try to remind myself of all the time.
Yeah. It's kind of related. Any principles or mantra that you tend to live by?
Yeah. So speaking of my college football career, I had a really great offensive coordinator when I was in college. And of course, like I said, raised in a football family, everything was win, 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 all about the results, all about like the score, the number of touchdowns you threw, the records you set, the championships you won, all this stuff. But this offensive coordinator I had in college, who was a wildly successful offensive coordinator, let me say that, he preached kind of the opposite, detaching from the result, focusing on the process, and most specifically, the two words, find joy. And he differentiated joy and happiness as happiness is kind of this thing that we're always chasing, right? It's like an end result. It's like picking up a bunch of sand in your hand. Like you have it, and then the second you have it, you're already losing it. Like it's already slipping through your fingers. It's nothing that you can actually hold on to. And so many people are chasing this end destination of happiness. Oh, when I reach 1,000 followers, when I make $1 million in sales, when I have this, when I do this, when I retire, when I get married, whatever it may be, when I graduate college, where instead he preached just two words, find joy. And I have it tatted on my ribs right now. It's the most painful tattoo I've ever gotten in my life. That's besides the point. But find joy. And really what that means is to just focus on the process and to recognize that in every single day, you can find joy. That's not going to say that everything you do is going to be joyous and joyful, but you can find joy in every single day. You can find joy in a loss. You can find joy in a win. You can find joy on your worst days. You can find joy on your best days. And when you do that, you're going to live a much more fulfilled life and a life with a lot more contentment and a lot less striving.
Love that. Yeah, thank you so much, Brock, for coming by. Before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so my MySpace is myspace.com.
It's the future.
The best place to get connected with me is, of course, on Instagram. And I'm Brock11 Johnson. That 11 is right in the middle of my name, Brock11 Johnson, over on Instagram. I'm the same on TikTok and every other platform as well. So whichever platform people prefer, hit me up there.
That 11 makes sense now that I found out you're a quarterback. Yeah, that was your number?
It's all full circle now.
That's your number, wow. Brock11 Johnson. All right, thank you for being here. And thank you all so much for listening. You can dive deeper into this episode, get those links that Brock mentioned over at staypaidpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, the best way is to head on over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review along with a comment. And actually, I messed it up. That's the second best way. The actual best way, Ariel, is to share
Josh.
This episode with a friend. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can find us on Instagram. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Brock, man, incredible. I mean, just so many tangible tips that I'm taking back, even for myself. So really greatly appreciate all that you gave there on the episode. Here's my action item for everybody listening to this, because we want to take this and boil it down to something you put into action to move your business forward, to move your life forward. I love the tip of filming that who you are video, that start here video that you can pin up to the top of your Instagram. What a great takeaway that you can execute on literally this evening or tomorrow in your business and pin it. And then if you want to go the extra mile, do some videos that talk about the stop doing this. Because you're in real estate, you're in insurance, you're in finance. There's so many things that buyers shouldn't do this, or be careful of this insurance policy. That is such a great way to start the hook of your next reel. Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every single business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.